Good morning, everybody. Blair tells me he's ready, and so is Karen. So I'll call the meeting to order, and we'll have a roll call.
Allen,
Allen, present.
Brown,
Brown present.
Ross,
Here.
Goby,
Opie here.
Leonard,
Leonard here.
Sanchez,
Here.
We're 100%. And we need a motion for the approval of the minutes of December 7th.
Leonard moves.
Leonard
Allen
moves. Is
moves,
there a
second.
second?
Allen, second.
Alan seconds. Is there discussion on these minutes? We're ready to vote.
Brown,
Brown, yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Goby,
Opie, yes.
thank you. Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Allen,
Allen, yes. Good minutes. Thank you.
thank you.
Is there any public comment online? I don't see anybody with their hands up in the room. Okay, we'll move to our partners. Mr. Arnold, are you online?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, barely.
Just barely?
No, it's better now.
Okay. I'm going to be brief since this is remote. We are working remotely to do what we can to educate our members on a number of things that they need for their own operations over these winter months. One of those is pesticide training to get certified for pesticide application and to be able to do that remotely as well as in person. The second is a new requirement for anybody who transports, applies, or handles anhydrous ammonia, a liquid form of nitrogen that is used particularly on corn. And because of some accidents that happened last year, a particular accident, I apologize, up in Lake County, all people who handle anhydrous ammonia are now required to get certified to go through training every 3 years. So we're also sharing information on how farmers can do that remotely, and there's a limited opportunity to do that at locations around the state this winter to get that certification before the spring planting season begins. We're also doing a lot of work on consumer engagement. The organization has established consumer engagement priorities for 2021. And I and my staff, as well as some of our volunteers, will be going through a series of lunch and learns in February on a variety of different consumer engagement topics in cooperation with the Center for Food Integrity out of the Kansas City area in Missouri. What people are cooking will be one of those topics. Coronavirus impacts on fresh food, culture and perception around mass-produced food, the changing face of corporate responsibility, and food as medicine are some of those topics that we'll be talking about. The Kane County Farm Bureau will also be hosting a meeting in 2 weeks of a regional advertising committee called Food for Thought that exists to pool resources of county farm bureaus and talk to consumers about to engage with consumers about farm and food topics. And we don't know what the result of that advertising campaign will be this year, what kind of platform we will use, but we'll gather those county farm bureaus 2 weeks from tomorrow to begin having those discussions. That's about all I have to report in a remote fashion.
What is the date of the pesticide training or the test?
There will be proctors for every exam. So there are locations throughout the state. They can also be taken online. So if a farmer, for example, puts in a request to take a test at 3 a.m. on February 7th, they will be matched up with a proctor to administer that exam online. We will publish the locations of in-person testing, provided that they're not filled by the time we get those details. So the closest ones to us in February are at the Asmark Center in Bloomington, and all of the in-person slots fill almost immediately. They are supposed to be announcing in-person training and testing in DeKalb at the DeKalb County Farm Bureau, but those dates have not been announced yet.
I've noticed in our magazine, we talked about water testing, sending in. I think that's important for people that have wells in the county.
That is correct. We offer a well water testing program every year in February and again in September. I thank you, Mike, for reminding me of that. Kane County has an abundance of private wells, and this is an opportunity for people to do a basic test, basically for nitrates and coliform bacteria. They can also do a pesticide immunoassay screen for triazine herbicides like Lasso, Dual, and Atrazine, and they can test for metals in their well water also. So we'll be publishing information about those tests in our February member publication, the Kane County Farmer, and we'll put information about that up on our social media sites, particularly on Facebook. So,
All right, any other questions for Mr. Arnold?
Mr. Chairman, this is Deborah Allen.
Hello, Deborah.
Good morning, just causing trouble. Our health department also does well and septic testing. Is that available in the rural areas, or is that an overlap, or are they testing differently so that their testing is not as suitable as your testing?
that I can't answer that question, Deborah. I would have to talk to the health department to find out what they test for and under what circumstances. Many public health departments will offer free testing, largely for nitrates if there is a child under 6 months old in the home. Ours is a little bit different. It's not free testing. It is a fee for service based testing. It's really more offered to give residents peace of mind if they have a private well, and it's also a way for people to, I guess, to track the quality of their well water over a period of time. If you go out and test every 5 years, perhaps for either pesticides or for just the basic water quality, then you've got, I guess, the peace of mind that your infrastructure, that your well casing, that you're not getting contamination through the wellhead. But I am not sure what testing is offered by the county health department or under what circumstances or the cost.
Sure, and that should be on me, but thank you for the information.
Well, no, I'm sorry. I'm poorly informed. I'll
As
take
am I,
responsibility
or
for
I wouldn't be asking. Thanks.
Any more questions, Deborah?
I'm done. Thank you, sir.
You're going to have to run hard if you're going to catch up with Mr. Shepro for questions. So
Thanks for the warning.
you're not annoying at all anymore. You're low level.
Glad to hear that.
Is anybody from Northern Illinois online?
Yes, hi, I'm here. This is Julia. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for having me again. I know the past couple times that I've been to this meeting, I've been talking about this cliff that our food bank was anticipating with government commodities not coming in at the same level that they had been. I'm happy to report back to you guys that through a few different steps, we are not facing this cliff that we've been fearing. So with COVID stimulus passing, we saw increases to the emergency food assistance program and other programs like SNAP, which is food stamps, and WIC, and a couple other programs that are really great and really helpful to our food bank in order to get food out to our neighbors. We also saw an increase in Section 32 bonus purchases, which is really great. We're going to be seeing some food coming in, some surplus farming, agriculture, the USDA then purchases and gives to food banks. So that's great. And then, as I know some of you probably are aware, the Farmers to Families Food Box Program, or the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program, that has been extended into a phase 5. So this has been a fantastic program. I can speak a little bit to the food bank side, and then Matt, I know if you want to hop in on the farming side, that would be great. But this program has been incredibly beneficial to us because we're receiving, U.S. grown fantastic produce, dairy products, proteins that USDA is purchasing and then providing to us in these prepackaged boxes, which we are then able to provide to our neighbors. And this has been fantastic, not only just because we've been getting so much food, but because we've been getting so much quality food that we're able to pass out. And we've been giving out this food through mostly through our pop-up markets, which is our big coronavirus response program. And those are happening continuously throughout our 13 counties. In Kane County, we're going to be able to continue to have a bi-weekly partnership with Elgin Community College to be able to host these pop-up markets. So because we're going to continue to see this influx in food, we're going to be able to continue our heightened distributions throughout all 13 of our counties, including Kane. With that being said, we are still going to see an increased need for volunteers. We know it's getting cold. We know things with the pandemic are still happening. So we're encouraging any neighbors who are willing, able, healthy to come out and join us. Right now, about somewhere between 20 and 25% of our volunteer base is volunteering at these pop-up markets, and they're outside. It's heavy lifting of these boxes, but we are still encouraging people who can come out to volunteer with us to do so. So that's a little bit of an update from the food bank.
Does anybody have any questions?
Mr. Chairman, this is Kopi.
Okay, Mr. Colby.
Thank you, sir. I had a question for Mr. Arnold. I just wasn't recognized in time apparently, but maybe Drew and Deb could help me on this. I understand that there's a surplus equipment coming out of the maintenance facility out of Fabian, and particularly a couple heaters and an air compressor. And I was wondering what the possibility would be to offer that equipment. Possible, I don't know the ins and outs, but I was donating county company that could be donated to the FFA out of the new facility.
I'm not sure if Deb got all that question. I got a lot of feedback in regards to the equipment and the donation.
I had trouble hearing too, Mr. Arnold.
Okay.
Is this better?
Sounds better to me.
Might
Is
be.
this better?
It sounds better now.
Okay. The question was, is there some surplus equipment coming out of the maintenance facility on Fabian when we move over to the new multi-use facility, the sheriff's department? And there's in particular, I think there's an air compressor and a couple of heaters that and I know this is an insignificant detail, but I'm thinking, why not? If it could be donated to the FFA in Big Rock. They built a new facility out there, and perhaps they could use the heaters and the air compressor.
May I ask a question, Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Fraz has got his hand up.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
okay.
can Tom, I could follow up on that with Chris Allen, our Director of Building and Facilities. And if it's available, I don't think that'd be a problem.
Oh, thank you. And if Mr. Arnold, if you could possibly ask if they'd even take receipt of it, that'd be an important factor also.
I'd be happy to forward that that question to the FFA. I don't know if anybody on this call can direct me to where I can get specs on the heaters or the compressor.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone.
Does anybody, let's go back, did anybody have any questions of Julia at the food bank?
Bates, please.
Who's that?
Member Bates, Mavis Bates.
Okay,
Hi, Julia. So I heard you say that you are in partnership with Elgin Community College. Are you in partnership with Waubonsee as well? And would that benefit the people closer to Waubonsee if you were?
Sure. So we have partnerships with a few different community colleges, community partners throughout our service area. I just know Elgin happens to be one that we've been partnering with since the beginning of this pandemic. Currently, I don't believe that we have a partnership with Waubonsee. I know we work with Joliet Junior College and College of Lake County, so just kind of spread out throughout our service area. But I could definitely look into a partnership with Waubonsee if you want to try to make that connection. I don't know, I would have to connect with our pop-up team, of course, because they handle all the planning and logistics. But yeah, I mean, we're always happy for partnerships in our community.
It sounds to me like that would benefit, kind of the southern end of Kane County. Should I call you or should you call me? Or we can talk later.
Yeah, I'll make sure to get in touch with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, this is Alan. I have a question for Julia.
go ahead.
Sure. Julia, if people want to volunteer, are we supposed to go on to the website or do you want to give us a phone number?
Yeah, so our website is solvehungertoday.org. And we've got our volunteer, we've got a little volunteer button up at the top, which will take you to our calendar. We've got a ton of opportunities, whether it's in our warehouse packing and sorting food or out at these direct distributions, these pop-up markets, some of our other programs. So we're always looking for volunteers. But yeah, it's solvehungertoday.org would be the best place to go to sign up to volunteer.
Thanks.
Are there any other questions? Okay, we'll move on to the presentations and announcements to the Farmer Relief Mini Grants. Matt Tansley.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you'll just give me a moment, I want to bring up my screen share so I can share some slides with the committee. Okay. So today I wanted to give an update on the Farmer Mini Grant and Survey Program. You'll recall that I announced at the last meeting in December that we were going to be opening this program soon. And I'm happy to announce that we have since closed the program and we have received 6 applications for the mini grants, and that also completed the surveys that were attached to those applications. So you'll recall that we developed this program as a relief and assistance program for farmers, food farmers in Kane County that really had to make changes to their operations and adapt to the way they do business during the pandemic. And so we know that there were significant costs associated with those adjustments, and I'll go through some of those findings that we learned in the survey, just so we can kind of see what types of expenses they encountered. In terms of the distribution of the application, we sent this out to a list of 50 food farmers that we have identified over the course of interacting with farmers and through our newsletter. And so we sent that out, and we received six applications. So it wasn't quite as much as we would have hoped, but it was still about 1 in 8 farmers who received the application, filled that out, and returned it to us. So we're really appreciative of that. And in going through the data, it was interesting to learn and useful to learn that much of these farmers really represent the cross-section of production in Kane County. So representing different types of production scale, different types of operations. So it's still a very representative data set that we'll be able to extrapolate for the rest of the county. So now I'm just going to look at some of the profile information of the farmers and just some of the summary findings from the survey. Half of the farmers acknowledge that they use some form of season extension, which is obviously an important mechanism for increasing sales over a longer period of time throughout the growing season. The types of farms, they span in size from 3 acres all the way up to 4,000 acres, which is very much at the high end. And all of the farmers use some form of on-farm market sales or market stand. So that really underscores the importance of that on-farm point of sale. And we don't have data to compare with previous years, but we expect that this increased in terms of the proportion of revenue that these farms were receiving. And another stat that I wanted to highlight as a standout finding is that 80% of farmers this past season completed their orders with online order fulfillment. And again, this is something that we expect changed pretty dramatically this past year in response to the pandemic, just as a new means for reaching markets that they might have been unwilling or unable to reach in previous years. Continuing, we learned that 70% of the farmers were reliant upon sales to restaurants. So this really speaks to the likely loss in revenue that many of these farmers faced. There was one farmer who responded that their revenue from restaurant sales declined about 99%. So that's so it pretty much wiped out their revenue stream from restaurants. We were really happy to see that over 80% of farmers responded that they either have an on-farm food safety plan or they're in the process of developing one. We had conducted a survey back in 2018 in which we asked that same question. And at the time, most of the farmers responded that they were in the process of developing a food safety plan. And so today we're happy to see that there's a much larger proportion of farmers that have already completed that on-farm food safety plan. So that's moving in a positive direction. And another standout finding, we asked the question if farmers would be interested in supporting or participating in a one-time virtual farmers market this spring to kick off the season. And this is a program idea that Janice has been doing some research on, and she's going to touch on in a little bit more detail. But there was unanimous consent that this is something that farmers would like to participate in, and they viewed this as an opportunity to kick off the season. We also asked the farmers to identify how they would be spending their grant funds and what the areas of need that they're experiencing. Excuse me. just to identify what their areas of need are. And some of the costs included transitioning their businesses. So investing in different materials to protect people, to ensure social distancing. One of the significant costs was investing in e-commerce platforms so that farmers could make those online sales. Obviously, there's expenses related to web design and to web hosting costs. And lastly, they identified costs related to marketing and advertising investments so they could reach markets that they couldn't previously connect with. So I just wanted to take a quick minute to acknowledge the recipients and congratulate them and acknowledge them for completing the survey and the application. The first farm is Gould Farms, which operates in Maple Park. They are a livestock operation in addition to a large grain enterprise, including corn and soybeans and wheat. They've been operating for over 50 years, and every year they produce about 17,000 piglets. So that just kind of gives you a sense of the scale of their operation. Also, Heritage Prairie Farm. They've been around since 2006, and they really specialize in specialty production. So they have organic production. They reach a couple of very targeted markets and retail outlets. And they also have, as I'm sure many of you are familiar, they have an event space that they use for weddings and their farm dinners as well. So it's really a dynamic operation. Also, the Prairie View Farm Market, which is primarily a retail operation based out of Hampshire. They sell a variety of herbs, perennials, and different types of vegetable plants. And they just completed their 20th year in business. So we're really happy to have them participating as well. Wiltsey's Farm is really a household name in Kane County. They've been in operation for 50 years, and they have they're really known for their large on-farm market store, and you can find just any number of produce item there. And they also sell products from many neighboring farms as well. So they're really an important farm operator and food producer in the county. Conley Farms is a newer operation. They operate in Caneville. They specialize in garlic production, and they are USDA certified organic. And again, we're really happy to have their participation as well. And lastly, the Strom Family Farm, located in Campton Hills. It's noted that that Lee Strom was the first participant in the Farmland Protection Program, and this tradition is carried on with his son and the next generation. So they sell vegetable products. They actually just developed an on-farm store, which you can see in the picture there. And they did recently retrofit that so they can do contactless pickup for their customers. So they can just come and pick up their product at their convenience when it's available. So as we move ahead with the program, we'd like to get consensus on a couple of items from the committee. And so the first item is that since we received fewer applications than we had anticipated, we are proposing that we award $1,000 grants to each of the 6 applicants that applied for the grant. So that would be a total of $6,000. That would then leave $4,000 remaining from the grant program. And so our second recommendation is that we take that $4,000 and conduct a second round of the mini grant program. We believe that there are more farmers that we can reach, more survey information that we can gather. There may have been conflicts with many of the farmers completing the survey because of the holiday and other challenges. So we'd like to make a second attempt at collecting those survey responses and conducting a second round of the grant program. And lastly, we're proposing that we report on the results of that second round at the upcoming meeting in February, at which point we would recommend what the grant amounts would be based on the number of applications that we received and what is determined to be an appropriate grant amount for that second pool. So those are the items that we are requesting consent on from the committee. And so that's what we're looking for to proceed.
Here's where you come in, Mr. Shepro.
Excellent. Thank you. I do have a question or two.
Sure.
Well, I'm glad you're here now.
I guess the first question would be is, do you have any data when you reported that they are all reporting loss of restaurant revenue? Do you have any notion as to what portion of their total revenue was represented by restaurant sales?
That was not a question that was specific in the survey as to, what share of revenue was lost. So I can't speak to that specifically. I could, there are other data sources that might provide a general picture of that. So I'd be happy to do some secondary research to see.
Well, just from the descriptions of the applicants, it appeared that at least a couple of them seemed to be almost exclusively targeted at niche sales of that kind, as opposed to maybe the first one that looked like it was a much broader operation. But and I guess related to that is, do you have a sense of what the universe of potential applicants would be?
In terms of the types of farming
in other words,
operation?
you had mentioned you got fewer applications.
For swimming.
Right.
And I just wondered how many in theory would you think would be uniquely interested in the grants? And then I have a
understand.
comment.
Right. So I had initially, at the beginning of the presentation, I noted that we had identified through all of our previous contacts and communications that we believe there are about 50 food farmers in Kane County that would be eligible to apply for this grant based on their operations and just the fact that they're food producing farms and businesses. So that would be essentially the universe of farms that we would be looking to reach.
I guess I have a comment, Mr. Chairman, and possibly a question for you and the farmers themselves. This seemed, first off, this is a really interesting and detailed and well done presentation, but we're only dealing, I gather, with a $10,000 grant. And I wonder if each applicant gets $1,000, I mean, obviously any help is welcome, but I wonder if that's a meaningful number for what has happened to these farmers, and wouldn't we be better off to just distribute the 4,000 to the 6 applicants? It just seems like there's an incredible amount of work involved to distribute a relatively small amount of awards.
Matt, what do you think? I think, I
Well, that's-
understand his
we're s-
point. I can think
Right.
of a number of people that I'm amazed that they didn't apply. Kleins, what about across from you, Drew? You have a farm over there,
Heritage Prairie.
but the other one across from you.
Rustic Road. Drew Frost speaking. Rustic Road Farm is at the other end of the road from Heritage Prairie, and they definitely produce food for restaurants and so forth. So,
Think of Allgrass up at Dundee.
yeah, and I normally forward any of these grant opportunities to them, so I don't know if they chose not to or just ended up not being aware of it.
Mr. Chairman, this is Mark Van Kerkhoff.
Yes?
If I could give a little backstory from a staff standpoint, we were very thankful to receive this grant from Compeer. Janice Hill had initiated early on in the pandemic when we received news of the award. Things were also in track of other relief efforts going on, including the funds that the county received from the federal government that, as you know, has been part of a process in its own right in the fall. So we were trying to use it, as Mr. Shepard pointed out, a relatively small amount of money to both help our farmers, which is Compeer's intention for awarding the grant, but also be able to through the survey effort, get really good data that actually helps us apply for additional funds and helps us target what's going to be most helpful to our local food growers in this next year. So as we track the application timing, we were kind of hoping to wait for the county's other application cycles to be done. We got to a point where that was extended again, so we went ahead and released our survey and application last month, especially targeting the 50 farms that we were aware of. Special also thanks to the Kane County Farm Bureau, who also assisted us in compiling that list. We sent that out in December. We tracked our responses, and as we got closer to the deadline of December 23rd, and realized we didn't have a high percentage response. As a staff, we had sort of two choices to make. One was either to do a full court press and phone call campaign to try to get in more applications, or to wait and do a second round in January. And we opted that with everything that was going on in December, that doing a phone call campaign and trying to encourage farmers to complete the survey and apply right before Christmas was probably not going to be all that productive. So we thought best to go with the 6 that came in and look at doing a second round, looking at different ways of outreach, perhaps doing some personal phone calling, so that we reach additional farms like Rustic Road Farms or whatever, and give them another opportunity to do. The other thing we did not know in terms of how much response we would get for using the $10,000 from the Compeer grant. We'd also hope to find out through the survey what the needs were, what the scope of the needs were. What I will let you know is that in the past, money in our Economic Development Fund 400, which comes from the Riverboat Fund, has been used both for exporting grant enhancements through piggybacking on other funds available in the region. And we've also used it for agricultural economic development activities. So if we were to move ahead, or if the committee were to move ahead with consensus on awarding $1,000 to the 6 applicants, release around 2, and hope to get more applicants. If we were to get a lot of applicants and the committee wanted to continue the $1,000 award level, we could look at supplementing the Compeer grant with some additional funds out of the Economic Development Fund if we get a great response. Our hope would be that we could get, at least half of these farms in to complete the survey, give us great data, make us competitive for additional funding, as well as get them some money to help them right away with their marketing and other needs that they identify in their surveys. So I know that's kind of a long answer to your question, but I hope that helps sort of fill in staff perspective on how we arrived at these recommendations. Thank you.
Mr. Shepro, is this another $50 answer to a 50 cents question?
This is actually like a gold dollar answer. I appreciate the thought behind it. It occurs to me that the CARES Committee, I think we encountered with a lot of the small business potential applicants, is that some appeared to have not applied because they just thought it was too difficult or too complicated to do that. I'm not aware of what the application looked like in this case, but it sounds like, if I interpret what Mr. Van Kerkhoff said, is that a lot of this is justifiable just in terms of the data and information that is granted. So I guess I would then look at it as more than just, if we had to spend $10,000 to hire somebody to get this information, it would be valuable information to have for the future. Would that be a fair comment, Mark?
Yeah, that'd be a fair comment. And the $10,000 ends up directly helping our farmers with a pretty simple application process. So it's a double win. We get the data and we get much needed funds to help with their identified expenditures to keep them competitive for the 2021 growing season.
Last question. Do you know if some of the farms that were identified by Drew and Mike and others, were they aware of it? Do we know, or?
They were on the list, and that's where we have the ability to see if people open their emails, how those were identified. And again, we considered doing a calling campaign, which we will do in this next round to make sure everyone's had some personal contact, but we didn't feel like the week before Christmas was the time to try to do that.
That's when Santa Claus comes. Thank you.
My question is the consensus for staff to proceed with the above recommendations. Can we do that, Mr. Shepro?
Well, you mean without a vote, or?
Consensus.
Consensus?
Yeah, yes, certainly you can do a consensus.
All right. Mr. Frost nods his head also.
Yes, this is Bill Leonard. I also agree.
So
This is
unless
Brown.
somebody objects, we will agree to let you do what you want to do.
My question, I guess, would be, is staff intending that this would be, if it's intended to authorize an actual award of the $1,000, then you'd need a motion, but I don't think it's on the agenda for approval of an award. Am I right?
That's what I
Correct.
was getting at. It's not on the agenda.
Yes, right. So, but
You will
yes,
have to be sworn to secrecy if we do this.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, this is Bill Leonard.
Yes, sir.
To respond to Mr. Shepro's concern, I agree that, at this point, I think all that we would give a consensus on is for them to conduct a second round of mini grants, distribution and potential application completion. We're not awarding any money at this point.
Mr. Chairman,
I agree with you.
yeah,
Mark Van
that would
Kerkhoff.
be my understanding as well. But presumably staff would be prepared with whatever was necessary at the February meeting to make the awards.
Agreed.
Are we okay, Mark? You got the go-ahead.
Yes, we appreciate
Matt?
that. We were hoping for consensus vote to be able to release those awards now. I see Mr. Shepro's point and certainly defer to, the comfort level and the process that the committee wants to follow. We were hoping, or at least staff's thought was that since the release of the grant was voted on and on the agenda and released last year with award amounts of $250 being projected because of the number of potential applicants, we brought this back as a consensus recommendation because the $1,000 award was more than the $250 projected award that the committee had already authorized. So our apologies that we didn't prepare this as a specific agenda item or resolution for vote. I was hoping to do this under my authorization to spend funds as a director, but wanted to get consensus of the committee because of the higher amount in the second round. But I defer to the committee's comfort
Well,
level.
I would just say that if there is that additional level of authorization, then I don't know that any vote would be required for that. The other comment I would make, and I know I'm violating Mr. Kenyon's directive to me that I'm not the attorney, but you can take a consensus vote because it's not final action. You'd be coming back with the awards. I mean, if staff would feel like they wanted a stronger expression of support, then there's nothing wrong with a vote to direct staff to proceed with their recommendation and report and a final action to take place at the February meeting.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. This is Bill Leonard. I agree with Mr. Shepro. I'm also wondering if we took a consensus at this committee meeting, could Mr. Van Kerkhoff get together a resolution for the Finance Committee to be approved with our consensus from the Agricultural Committee and then move forward to Executive and County Board so that we wouldn't be wasting another month?
That's an excellent suggestion.
All right, Mr. Leonard makes a consensus recommendation, seconded by
Alan.
Fraz. Do we need any discussion? So we'll take a roll call on this?
No, we can't take a roll call on this.
What you're doing is that essentially without objection, the committee consensus is to have the staff recommendation put into the form of a resolution that could then go to finance. And then that would comply with all the requirements of a notice and vote, and it would be presumably on the Finance Committee agenda. Am I correct, Mr. Leonard?
That is correct. And with the consensus, we don't vote. We just look for any, if there are no objections, then there is a consensus. We can move it forward and have a resolution for the Finance Committee.
I remind you, it's too late for another Trump pardon, so we'd have to look for Biden to get us off the hook if we get in trouble. So we'll proceed like this. Okay?
Thank you, staff. Staff greatly appreciates that, and we will follow through with the Finance Committee and move ahead, and appreciate your support and the recommendations.
Are we going to hear from, are you done, Matt?
Yes, that concludes my report.
Is Janice going to talk to us?
I am, and under new business, I have one slide, please.
I didn't understand what you said.
Oh, one slide under new business.
Okay.
There we go. Thank you, committee, for our support in that, and thank you to Compeer Financial. Part of, maybe I should turn my speaker down, that might help. Just a little background too, to continue Matt's presentation. He made a wonderful presentation with Mark's support there in explaining both Compeer's grant parameters for that particular grant and the support they gave us and why they gave us that support. It was to guide us in the farmers through COVID. And before, not that long ago, I guess it was just over a month ago, they announced another grant opportunity, and I was able to apply for that on behalf of Kane County as well. And we just received very positive support in that they awarded us $10,000 again. And I requested matching funds for the ComEd Growing Farming with Pollinators project that we were awarded, so that we have a complete match now, another $5,000 toward that project so that we can begin that project. There's been a lot of technical guidance that has been coming out on this particular topic on the best way to help farmers understand how, given different crops, to insert pollinators within their farms and how best to farm in that environment. So we'll be creating a project there. It will be a plan. It won't be an actual on-field project. But there'll be, we'll have funds to be able to hire experts in that area. I just heard a very interesting webinar at the Illinois Specialty Crop Conference. And of course, the pollinators that are recommended within specialty crops are different than within the corn and soybean rotation, and on and on. So there's lots to learn and lots to share there. So we're very grateful for that. We also had a sense in getting the responses back from the farmers in the mini grants that we knew that e-commerce was going to be a big topic. And so the thought came about this potential virtual farmers market as a kickoff for spring 2021. We know that many of our farmers already have their own websites, and we don't want to replace that, but we do want to offer something to our public to direct them to the farmers' websites. So that's where the idea came for this virtual farmers market, and Compeer really liked the idea and gave us $5,000 to pursue this. So you'll hear more from us on next month. I just wanted to give you this great news of another $10,000 from Compeer Financial and to thank them publicly, and to give that response to the farmers that we've already heard from, that unanimously they're interested in this idea. So again, this is how we build from the data that we get from farmers to bring more technical and financial resources back to the community.
Okay,
Any
thank you.
questions or comments?
I have a comment, Mr. Chairman. I think this, and just at the previous as well, for a lot of new board members, I think we all need to understand the incredible amount of institutional expertise and dedication so many of the programs that the county has, but maybe in particular the development department over the years, finding grants, being aware of them. You may recall that the whole farmland preservation came about because we found and pursued a grant when nobody else in the country did that. And so many of those programs depend on a staff that is able to find them, get them. And I don't know that I've ever seen a total estimate of the total amount of money, but it just covers so many things. And we get it and other counties don't, because we've got a staff that knows how to find them and how to get them. And I just, having had the privilege of working it years ago when some of these programs were just getting started, I think it is a perhaps they don't get the credit that they should deserve for all of the work that goes in to getting non-taxpayer dollars to do good things.
Thank you, Ken. On behalf of the staff, we really appreciate that. And it is a process of learning. Certainly, we didn't start off as grant writers, that's for sure. But we do know that bringing funding in to help bring in direct support as well as that technical expertise is really important, because what we're trying to do is customize what's right for Kane County and bring to the elected officials what policies and programs and plans from around the country and experience is right for Kane County, as opposed to just bringing a blank slate and saying, adopt this, because that may or may not be right. And we've learned through pilot projects and surveys and drilling down into the data that we can come up with what's best for Kane County, whether it's private support, technical experience, public dollars, you know, what that right combination might be. But thank you very much for that.
Are there any questions or comments? There's Mr. Copey. Where's Mr. Copey? All right. If there are no other questions or comments, I think we need to have a motion to put the reports on file.
Alan moves.
Alan moves.
Leonard seconds.
Leonard seconds. We're ready to vote.
Brown,
Brown, yes.
Kobe, Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Allen,
Alan, yes.
It's approved. Now we need a motion to adjourn. Oh,
Sanchez moves.
We won't adjourn then. Who's going to move?
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez moves. Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. Is there a second?
Leonard
Mrs. Allen.
seconds.
Leonard seconds. All in